piggybacking off of that, what is the role or responsibility of individuals and groups of privilege in evolving that equity and representation?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of that, but again, I think um, any person that's a member of a marginalized community, whether that's a BIPOC community or whether that's a person who grew up poor or a woman or a queer person, um, has had no choice but to examine how the oppressive colonial structures have affected their perception of who they are, what's possible for them, and their place in society. And I think that as privileged people, the real work that we have to do is to examine how our positions of privilege have informed our perspectives and viewpoints and approaches and developed blind spots in our own way of moving in the world. And, in a sense, um, we have the opportunity to choose to make inquiry into our own privilege and to question the notions of right world theory. Right world theory is like that everyone that everything that exists because it's right, and so that is the key element of work that I ask our board members and our allies and our stakeholders in privileged communities to do, is examine your own privilege, examine the bias that you have, the class bias, the race bias, the um, you know when I 30 years ago I went in to do a training for a group of leaders who did um, really amazing work with children, Challenge Day, in schools, looking at racism, sexism, homophobia inside of schools. And what I said is, what kind of people would be drawn to travel across the country 5 days a week and go into schools cold and do this work with teenagers who don't want to be there? And they came up with all kinds of answers, and I said racist, homophobic, sexist people would want to do that. So I think really, my message over the decades has been the first thing we can do as privileged people is recognize that we are racist, sexist, homophobic, and classist, as well as being xenophobic and lots of other things. And that makes us safe, because that starts the inquiry into, how does our privilege blind us to the lived experience of most of the world, and how can we become better allies? So I think that's an ongoing inquiry, and the most generous thing that a privileged person can do is inquire into their own privilege.
Wow. Well, I know having this conversation with you has definitely been very thought provoking for me, and very, I feel like I've learned a lot, thought about a lot of things that I haven't thought of in the same, way before. So appreciate how you having me have this conversation with you. And
Thank you so much, and thank you, Morgan, for all of your work in amplifying the voices and lived experiences of marginalized groups. And I know that's a passion of yours, and there's a real deficit of storytelling expertise, and I appreciate your willingness and strong desire to bring your gifts to these communities. So thanks for all that you've done and all that I know you'll continue to do.
absolutely, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Awesome.